How competitive is Miami going to be this year? That's what he asked.
Okay. That's a good question. I think that we're seeing a Manny Diaz coached team won't quit, for one. So I expect that narrative competitiveness, that anecdotal competitiveness to exist in every game, where we will play every single snap to our best. I think you spelled that website wrong.
Oh, yeah. I juxtaposed the H and the T.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, yeah. But no worries. State of the THEU.com. So, yeah, I think that we're going to be a team that fights every game. We're going to play strongly every single week. And again, mistakes might happen, but I think that's going to be complete buy-in and everything like that. So on the anecdotal side, there's that. In terms of wins and losses, I think that Miami, again, the absolute floor should be 9 wins. And if that is, that should hopefully put you in contention for an ACC Coastal Division championship. If you win more than that, that should put you in, leave you in that and push towards even more, depending on how things shake. But yeah, Miami should be, with the talent that's on this roster, with the specific players who are coming back on this roster and what they offer to this team. Miami should be very competitive in terms of wins and losses on the field. I will also say that based upon the schedule and based upon the talent on the roster, Miami should have been more productive or competitive in terms of wins and losses in previous seasons than they have been. So it is entirely possible that we do not reach the level of performance that most of us expect from the schedule that we're facing and the talent on this roster. I hope that this is finally where things start to curl over and come together, where we have an advantageous schedule and we have a talented roster and we take advantage of those things. But even though that is my evaluation and expectation, we have seen in recent past where Miami has failed to meet that expectation. So there could be that as well.
I scurried to look through both Lindy's and Athlons that are sitting right here, and I'm not finding a record in Lindy's, but it's got to be very comparable to Athlons because they're both selecting Miami as the 14th ranked team in the country, and Athlons has Miami at 9-3, 6-2 in the conference.
Got mine right here.
Yeah, there we go. Right there, dueling Athlons and Lindy's. Yes, right there with you. So, So the national publications are saying 9-3. To extend off of what Cam had to say, this is my thought, and it's been my thought generally for the last few seasons, even though I think Miami's in much better shape organizationally than they've been the last few seasons, is that if you go game to game to game, okay, there's an obvious underdog role and prominent underdog status against Alabama and about a 10% chance of winning that game. So that's most likely a loss. Okay, other than that, Miami plays one team that can match them in roster talent. And again, going beyond the talent, but beyond the talent, but what we've seen out of the coaching staff, the development of the players, and that's obviously North Carolina. Okay, other than that, Miami is substantially, decidedly better than everybody else on the schedule. So that would lead you to the conclusion of 10-2 should be the worst record that they have, because you've got one team that's substantially better, one team that's comparable. That should be a toss-up game. Okay, it's on the road. Maybe it's 60-40 Carolina. And then other than that, they're decidedly not like they can walk in and win the game by 50 points against fill in the blank Virginia Tech. Not to that degree, but decidedly, like there's not an argument. It's not a discussion. They're better than everybody in the Coastal other than Carolina. They're better than the two teams that they play in the Atlantic. But once you start to group games together, obviously, if they played a 50-game season, and even if they played all these teams that they are decidedly better than, there becomes a greater probability that they're going to slip up against somebody. Well, they've been slipping up 3 and 4 times. If they can limit that to maybe 1, they could possibly still win the Coastal if they beat Carolina head-to-head. That should be the game of the year. That should be the must-win game for the division. Now, crazy things happen and unexpected to all of us that change the outcomes of these division races, but that's what it looks like right now to me, that they should be a 10-2 team.
It fits 100%. I saw the 247 Sports predicted 10-2 as well. But that's why I say the floor should be 9-3. That's basically 10-2 plus, or if you switch one of the should be wins and you stumble. But like, that's where the expectation, that's the target level there and greater, not 7-5 and, 8, even 8-4. No, man, I just don't want to see that. In answering the last question, before I forget, how vulnerable is Clemson? It comes down to Uiagalelei, honestly. And I don't know if he's going to be the guy or whatever, but they're not going to have generational quarterback after generational quarterback again and again and again. They're going to have injuries. They're going to have guys miss. They're going to turn the ball over. All the things that they have not done in many a year are going to start happening, and I don't know if necessarily vulnerable, but they're not as I sit here right now on June 17th. So let me timestamp this so y'all don't take this out of context. But on June 17th, looking at Clemson, they're not the monster that they were with Sunshine Lawrence, with Travis Etienne, who for no reason should have been on campus for 4 years and terrorized us in that game last year. With all their defensive linemen who came back again that year and then win in the first round of the NFL draft, all those things. They're not, in my estimation, looking at where their program is right now in June, they do not seem to be at that same exact caliber of team. Now, if you're talking about a fractional difference, okay, yeah. I mean, are they close to that? Sure. They still have 4- and 5-star talent everywhere. Yes. Is what's his name, Venables, still over there because he'll never leave? Even though he should have been left many a time for a head coaching job. Yup. Is that frustrating? Absolutely. But I do believe that there is a difference as I look at them today in June to what the beast has been for them in recent years. Does that mean I expect Miami to beat them this year? Probably not. Does that mean that I expect Clemson to drop 2 ACC games randomly or something like that? Absolutely not. But at least until they prove it on the field, there's at least the scintilla of a question about them this year that I think, that has not existed for Clemson in recent years.
To further your point, once again, the Clemson teams in 15, 16 skipped 17 because even though they were playoff good, it was Kelly Bryant at quarterback. And then in 18, those teams were the national champion or losing to Alabama by that much. They were right there. They were the best. Okay.
And just to interrupt you really quickly, in 17, Kelly Bryant and them blew our doors off anyway. So I'm not even going to exclude them from the conversation because that team still gave us the business. But continue.
The last 2 college football playoff appearances, though, may give us a glimpse to the program leveling off just a bit. LSU was all-time good on offense. I understand that. And the game was closer than the final score because it was a really good game with about 10 minutes left, 28-25. Then LSU took them to the woodshed the last 10 minutes. But it was a competitive game for most of the way. Then an Ohio State team that, in my estimation, even though they made the national championship game last year, was not any kind of vintage Ohio State team. It was a run-of-the-mill Ohio State team. Blew them out. So the thing about Clemson, though, that you don't have with the other elites, Alabama, if they slip up, LSU's right there. Texas A&M's right there. Auburn's right there. If Georgia slips up, Florida's right there. Even Kentucky's better than anybody in the ACC Atlantic Division right now, et cetera, et cetera. If Ohio State slips up, Penn State, Michigan, maybe Michigan State at some point. Indiana right now is actually pretty good. Clemson, they are just so much better than everybody else in that division that we may see it in this Georgia game or when they have to play a crossover against a North Carolina or a Miami, which they don't this year.
Yeah, they missed both of us. That's crazy.
But they play in this bubble that they just run roughshod over.
Yeah,
But I agree. They are
but
more vulnerable than they've been. Yes.
But even with their program seeming to level out a little bit, they're leveling out at 38,000 feet, and we're trying to get up there. You know what I mean? So it's just like, yeah, are they leveling out a little bit and not still ascending and getting better? Because from this run, the crazy thing is they've not been missing on many players. They've had incredible development. They've had no injuries, really, to speak of. And again, Mike Williams, I know he got injured in the wide receiver Ross. He got injured and things like that. I'm not going to discount those things. But those were not game-changing because you had somebody else who could step in and, okay, fine. You know what I mean? And they've had generational quarterback after better generational quarterback, one after the other. So, yeah, I mean, leveling off is one thing. But then, again, you know, is Miami ascending to the level where we can overcome where Clemson has leveled off at? I don't necessarily know, and I don't think so right now. It would take an incredible game. You know, that Lamar Jackson Louisville game there in Death Valley, that's Saturday night when Eli Rogers went out of bounds instead of cutting it back and scoring and winning the game. That game, it's going to take that kind of performance from everybody if we get the opportunity to really crest that hill. But, you know, we'll hopefully see about that at a later date.
Tabardine, I did not say that Kentucky was better than Miami. I said that Kentucky was better than everybody else in the Atlantic Division.
The other division. The Florida State division. The division that's really Clemson and the Pips. Yeah. To answer the other question, what do I expect from Miami, Florida State this year? Another Miami win by 4 touchdowns or more. I don't really think it's going to be competitive. I don't think that it's going to be close. I think that Florida State, again, and I've said this in multiple other shows. You can go back and look up the videos because they're right there and you can hear it in the same exact voice. I'm going to say it to you now. I think that Florida State is a couple of years away from even being in the conversation to beat Miami. I think that we're clearly in a different strata than they are. I think that the dysfunction is there. I think that the dearth of talent is there. Yeah, they're not even Florida State. And they're not anywhere near what Florida State is or anything like that. And Miami is not necessarily back. We're not championship Miami, but we are more a facsimile of a good, great Miami program than they are of even a competent Florida State program. And I think that's going to be borne out again on the field in October, November, whenever we play them. It's not going to be close.
The Florida State product on the field, especially last year, it was building up to as bad as it was last year. The previous 2 seasons was like unrecognizable.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they go back and look at that game, man. You know, and like I know everybody was scared, and you know, people were calling me crazy for calling the incredible blowout because I called it beforehand. So this is not even. This is going to be biblical. This reckoning. This is going to be a beat down of epic proportions, and it was. People were like, oh well, you know, it's Florida State. That was not Florida State. Like the people who were on that team, they should have been ashamed. They should not even have. That was not a Florida State. They didn't approach anything like a Florida State. That was I don't even know, Middle Tennessee State, maybe. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, and maybe not even that. It was, yeah, like unrecognizable. Not even terrible. But hey, 52-10. I love it.
Louisville went 4-7. They beat Florida State by 32 points. Pitt beat them by 30-some points.
Yeah,
like.
Because it was week after week with those haymaker blowouts by 5 and 6 and 7 touchdowns. Week after week after week. Clemson was merciful with them. We beat them by 6 touchdowns, and Clemson was better than us. Because Clemson beat us head-to-head last year. Clemson literally, not figuratively, like, you know, sometimes, literally came into that game and could have picked the score that they wanted. Regardless of what it was, all the way up to that 228-0 Cumberland College Georgia Tech game from 1873 or whatever. They could have picked the score and made that happen. And I guess they were, you know, we're going to, whatever. But it was a literal choose your own adventure, choose your own score game from the moment that it came on the schedule for Clemson and Florida State last year. It was atrocious.
So if Florida State holds on to some semblance of the recruiting class that they're building right now, they're probably in a position, because of what they've shown recently and how bad that they've been, is they're probably going to, especially with a coach who's going to be fighting for his job, if he turns in another, let's say 4-8 kind of year, they're going to rush some of these really good players who probably aren't ready into starting and high backup positions.
Yeah, you will. I mean, Travis Hunter is everybody's All-American, the 5-star.
Well, yeah.
I mean, so he's a kid who's going to play early anywhere. I still want him to save his career and not go to Florida State. I mean, just in the interest of the kid. I really, honestly, and truly do. But hey, if that's what he wants to do because he's a Florida State fan, he grew up a Florida State fan, and he wants to, wear the garnet and gold. If you like it, I love it for you, and I wish you all the best. But I really wish he would come to his senses and go somewhere else. But yeah, I would probably integrate mid-season. So if this recruiting class for Florida State currently holds in 2022, I would say around that 5th or 6th game, I'm layering those guys in for more and more and more and more reps all the way through the season, with an eye on 2023 and really 2024, really maybe 2023, because I don't think that Norvell would get a 24 if it goes poorly again. But if you get to 2023, get a couple guys from the transfer portal, which funnily enough, they were making jokes of because Miami couldn't field a team. They had to go, whatever, transfer you, and now all of a sudden they're trying to bridge gaps on their roster and plug holes and things with the transfer portal. It's funny how that all of a sudden is the right thing to do when you were talking crap about it for 3 years, but whatever. But if you're them, the goal has to be keep most of these guys, rotate them in this next 2022 season when they're freshmen, with an eye to develop them further and then get more recruits and a couple transfers to plug in some holes on that roster for 2023. That would be the target for me if I were at Florida State. But I'm not, so they can burn and rot. Go Canes.